Welcome everybody to Games Now. My name is Anna-Kaisa Kultima, and I'm here with my dear co-host Sally Park, today presenting an amazing presentation, kind of a collection of game jams. So the academic year of 2020 to 21 is almost over. This is I guess this is the 9th lecture of the year. And I'm so excited. This is like a huge mega panel of how people experience their jam paths and what they have learned with their game jams. So game jams have become such a kind of a household item everywhere in the game industry. When we started like a decade ago, it was very rare to have game jams around, but now game jams are everywhere. They're not only available for people to participate in online or physical locations, well, not now with physical locations, but they're also part of the company's own kind of innovation and brainstorming processes. So this is very much happening everywhere. So if you haven't yet heard about game jams, you will hear a lot of different kinds of game jams today. So Solip, how are you doing?
Great. And I'm also very highly excited about today's panel. We have mega panelists that you just mentioned, and quite a large of them, and from all around the world, actually. So it's not just we're not just going to talk about Game Jam in Finland or in Europe, but we're also going to talk about Game Jam and ecosystem out there in the world and how they also work together to build and sustain this ecosystem.
Yeah. So anyway, there's so little time of going through of all these experiences. We have to remind you that we are now going after party mode also today. So if you're interested in kind of extending the presentations of today's, we'll have 1 hour more at the end of the lecture session. But that will be happening on our Discord server. Make sure that you follow all of our social media channels to also get all the notifications of next year's content. But anyway, so Solip, let's have a little bit of an introduction of who is going to talk today.
Yes, so we have 7 panelists today. And then first team are representing game jam scenes here in Finland. First, we have Samuli Jääskeläinen, the super jammer and software engineer at Varjo. Kristina Läshäki, a junior narrative designer at Skunkworks Games, who is also the co-organizer of Pride Game Jam Helsinki and research assistant here at Aalto University. We also have Anna Lapinsi and Juri Kuoka, both jamming enthusiasts and game designers at Rovio Entertainment. And now we can move outside of Finland, where we have Kasper Domanski from Poland, a programmer and designer at the Astronauts Game Studio. He's also the co-organizer at Slavic Game Jam. And then we also have guest speakers from Asia. We have Lise Johns from Hong Kong, a PhD candidate at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University and co-organizer of Hong Kong Global Game Jam. And last but not least, Son Park from South Korea. He's a captain and creative director at Turtle Creek Game Studio and also runs Game Jam in Seoul in South Korea. And for your information, Son Park and I are not brothers or sisters. We just happen to have the same last name. Okay, so that was all 7 panelists. Hope I pronounced their names correctly this time. Let's just get into it. Yes.
Yeah, let's say hi to all of the panelists. Okay. All right, hi, how are you doing?
Hello.
Hi. So happy to have you all here. I hope you're doing fine. It's an exceptional time for game jams as well, but let's hope that we will be able to discuss all the kind of fun stuff with jams. But yeah, how are you doing? Where are you at?
Home, I guess.
Home in Helsinki.
Yes.
I don't think anyone's anywhere else, right? Been home for a year now.
In your homes.
In my office.
Yeah, so Son is at the office. Reese, you also look like that. That's maybe not your home.
I'm on campus. Yeah.
In Hong Kong. Yeah.
Yeah, in Hong Kong.
Kasper, you are at home,
yeah,
right?
I'm at home. We have a national holiday today, so.
Good.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing to do kind of jam-related stuff. Yeah, Kride, and you're also at home, right?
Yep, I'm at home in Helsinki.
Yeah, great. So I guess there is so little time to go through all the presentations. We'll have these mini presentations of everybody presenting their background and a little bit of lessons learned, art by learning. What is it? Art of learning by doing. So we'll have these mini presentations of the speakers, and then we will move to the panel discussion. We'll go deeper into the jam cultures and how things are kind of moving in that scene. If you have any questions as a viewer, you can post them in our chat, so we'll pick them up from there. But let's start with the presentations, and Samuli, you have the honor to be the first one to kind of shed a bit of a light of who you are and what you've learned so far and what's fun with jams.
Thank you. So I guess I'm live now. So I am Samuli Jääskeläinen, and I will be briefly telling some things that I've learned through the game jams. And first, a little bit of myself. Here's some stats. I've made a bunch of video games, most of them during game jams. I've tried all kind of different kind of tools for game creation, and these are like coding, art, audio, animation, whatever goes. I've released games for multiple different platforms. I've won some awards. I don't really care about those, but it's always nice to get some recognition. And then I also do quite a lot of jamming globally when there is no pandemics going on. So I've been in like 12 plus countries. I put the plus there because some of the countries are in disputed territories. So let's go to the first of three things that I will be talking about today here that I've learned through the game jams. And first is the scope. So when you are doing a lot of small games, you will be starting to see very quickly what can you do in what kind of time. So here is one game that took 3 days to make, and one game that took 1 day to make. And I can make a game within any kind of scope of the time, and I can just scale things accordingly. And the more you make small games, the easier it is to scale up and understand what you are honestly capable of doing within those time frames. So game jams teach a lot of scoping. Then a bit related to scoping, they also teach you about how to do safe games and risky games. So many people are telling people at the beginning of the game jams to make small and safe games. So make a game that is very easy to play at the beginning, and then test and polish that small thing. But as someone who has made dozens and dozens and dozens of games, I don't always want to take the easy road. And I sometimes make this like a huge, very complex game that I can only test at the last minute. And they are either really good successes or really big failures. So I always tell people, if they are getting too comfortable with the scope of the games during game jams, like just scope it up and see what happens. And if you fail, then you fail. It doesn't really matter. You will learn a lot of things about what you can do and what you can't. And the main thing that game jams have taught to me is that I can do a lot of different things. So I never limit myself to one platform or type of game. So I do a little bit of everything. I jump from tool to tool. And this is also leaked into my professional life a lot. So I don't have this kind of, I'm not afraid of any kind of new tools or new challenges that are thrown to me, because I'm so used to like just learning new things within a weekend and see how I can apply them to the games. So I highly recommend trying out new things and different things and frameworks and platforms that you have always dreamed of developing during a game jam, because it's a safe place to do those things. Sometimes you can make good things, sometimes they totally fail because things are very complex, and sometimes they are literally held together with super glue, like the Optimo game there in the corner that we made a physical game. But we don't have much time, so that's me. Thanks, and let's go to the next speaker.
Yes. So I'm proposing that, Kride, are you able to do the second presentation? I would love to hear yours next.
Absolutely, I can do that. Is it all right if I start sharing my screen?
Yep.
Yes, all right. Let's set that to share. There we go. All right. Okay, hey, hello everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm Christina, or Kride Lasheikki. And as Salip already mentioned, I'm a junior narrative designer at Skunkworks Games. I'm also a research assistant and a master's student at Aalto University in the game design and production program. Let's not mention which year I'm in. And my background is actually in art education, from which I graduated in 2019 with my thesis, which is aptly called Game Jams for Learning. So I have a more of an academic background into this. But I've also been game jamming quite a lot. And these days I'm also an organizer. So I'm one of the organizers of the Pride Game Jam. We had the first one last year. There's a new one coming up. It hasn't been formally announced yet, but it's going to be happening. And then I've helped organize some other jams as well. So I helped with Pocket Jam last year, and I've been helping with the Finnish Game Jam Helsinki Arabia site for a few years, and then I've organized some educational game jams in schools, both for kids and for adults and for high schoolers. So I'm kind of that sort of combination of game dev and teacher, I guess, as a background. I've also done some graphics for the Finnish Game Jam. So if you've seen these fellas, these were from my pen. And yeah. At this point, I've been to something like 25 game jams, ? I don't know exactly how to count them, since some of them are, also in private settings, some are public settings, some are schools, some are just with some friends. But I've been game jamming since 2015, and it's actually how I got into game dev, kind of. Or got back into game dev. I used to make some games as a teenager, but that's so long ago. Yeah, it seems like every year I just do more jams, and starting small. Usually at jams, I'm a person who does graphics and narrative stuff. And I guess some of the things I've learned, you can get really a lot of done in a short amount of time. It seems that every year I'm jamming, I'm able to do more. So I guess the same thing that Samuli mentioned about, like, you can start by doing something safe and small, or then you can go for something big and a little bit scary, but kind of ambitious. But yeah, definitely project management skills, scoping, how to match ideas and skills is a big one, and how to be a better team member, just generally. That's something I've grown in a lot during my 6 years of game jamming. But then also just basically everything that goes into making games, since I started off with jamming. So I've been growing as a game maker and developing myself as a game maker, with all sorts of stuff from different types of graphics to animation, to doing 3D stuff, to level design, and messing around with Unity and other game engines, and pixel art, and using Twine and RenPy, and reading really obscure documentation, because that seems to be a thing you always have to do. And then I've gotten to do some voice acting. That's been wonderful and fun, very much out of my normal skill set. And then something big, I think, that you learn through game jamming is to just release a game. You have to let it go. And then you just put it out there. It's out in the world. You can move on to the next thing. But you also learn these kind of marketing skills of, like, how do I put together a small trailer? How do I make logo? How do I make the marketing material? All of that stuff really quickly. And that's been super useful. And I already mentioned I did my thesis on game jams. And I learned things about game jams as I was studying game jams. So kind of at game jams, you're learning and building skills together. It was a big thing. There's a more communal way of learning. So you're learning both as an individual, but also as a team. And then it's very asymmetric. I found the learning at game jams, you're not all learning the same things, and this is the cool part, I think. If I go to a game jam and my husband goes to the same game jam, we're gonna come home with completely different learnings. And then there's a lot of this like discovery. You're doing something and then you find a thing that's like kind of interesting about it, and then you get super inspired and you end up learning something you hadn't planned on learning. So I love that kind of thing about the learning at game jams. Yeah, I guess that's my short presentation. Let's go on to the next one.
Thank you, Christina. Kasper, would you be able to do the third presentation? So are you ready to do that?
Yes, I am. Okay. So hi, I'm Kasper Domański. I'm one of the organizers of Slavic Game Jam, and I'm programmer/designer at the Astronauts. And while everyone probably will focus more on what they've learned throughout game jams, I'll kind of circle around that. One of the things that Slavic Game Jam is right now is what I think is kind of the conclusion of what me and the other organizers have been thinking about game jams we partook in over time and how that changed. So Slavic Game Jam was inspired by Nordic Game Jam. Its first edition happened in 2015. It was the first international game jam to happen in Poland. The first edition had, I think, one non-native Polish speaker, but that changed over time, and we grew. I think that the biggest edition was just slightly under 400 participants. And the game jam, since it was inspired by Nordic Game Jam, it started with copying a lot of the patterns that we've seen throughout first Global Game Jam site that we hosted, and the Nordic Game Jam, and then started developing its own identity. And our conclusion of what's the most important throughout the game jam and throughout the game jams we partook around Poland, around Europe, and around the world was the friendships that we got out of those game jams, the people that we've met, the connections that we've established. So Slavic Game Jam became the game jam made by friends for friends, for our old friends and for our new yet to be met friends. So yeah, that's my line of thought about game jams at this point. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Listen to the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Kasper. That's very concise. I'm going to ask more questions from you later on.
Okay.
And let's take next one. Let's take Reese.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so about me, my name's Reese. I'm a third year PhD candidate at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. In a broader sense, I'm a games researcher for 6 years, studying all kinds of topics, actually including things like game jams, representations of Hong Kong in video games. There's a picture of me doing games research. Had to visit every single game arcade in Hong Kong, so it can be pretty fun to get into the academic side as well. I also do teaching, teach the game design, game development, assist with that at PolyU. My PhD focus is kind of in fan cultures, so that's why I'm interested in the way that people are interacting with like live streams and esports and stuff. But the reason I'm here mainly is because I'm the co-organizer of a Hong Kong Global Game Jam. So been organizing that for 6 years as part of a team there. And basically what I can sort of bring to this and what I've learned is the logistics of managing like a very large site. So the Hong Kong site for Hong Kong Global Game Jam is one of the biggest in the world. It's like consistently in the top 10. You can sort of see the years and the numbers of people that have been attending. And yeah, it's basically a massive balancing act with so many stakeholders involved, because we have like a main organizer in terms of like a tech and science park. You can see here all the different sort of organizers and stakeholders on a recent poster. Supporting organizers, we work with the educational partners in Hong Kong, like basically get support from every single university. And then of course we have sponsors, like corporate sponsors or companies that want to sponsor awards and things like that. So we're trying to balance the creative spirit of the jam with having these stakeholders. So for example, if we have awards, because we don't want to encourage people to going towards like just making a game for sake of trying to get an award, the award titles won't be announced during the sort of opening of the jam, just to sort of like, that's something we learned early on. Otherwise, people just like pigeonhole themselves trying to go for an award title. Learning the importance of a great organizing supporting team. So I'm just a co-organizer, but like we have a team of volunteers that helps organize every year. Another thing is the consistency of collaborators to make things easier. So now that we're sort of established and been around for so long, it's much easier for us to sort of get sponsors and get people to support us and advertise our jam. And the other thing I learned is like there's long-term expectations. When we've been around for so long, the jam sort of gets a reputation. People expect certain things because they're like, oh, this was the case last year. There was when you start to get catered food, when the quality of the prizes starts to go up, people start to sort of think, hey, I'm expecting this every year. And the other thing is the amount of space you need, because as the size of the jam increases, you need to get more and more people, unless you actually can start to fit in the photos every year. The other thing I can sort of talk about is the local jam flavor, sort of being in Hong Kong or organizing jams in Hong Kong for so long. So we are a basically 2-to-1 ratio of students and professionals at our jams. So it's primarily students who attend and participate, but there's still a lot of professionals who get involved, and sort of the interplay and the value that they can get from each other is really sort of interesting there. And then the jammers' skills, so their skills and specializations, don't know if they're unique to our jam site, but we've sort of taken sort of a notice and did some sort of polling of like what the skills people have. So we have them all there from most to least. I won't read them all out, but we mostly have game designers, and then like the least we have is things like audio, hardware specialists, things like that. And then finally, the game themes often focus on local Hong Kong issues and cultures is something that we've sort of learned over the years. So just some example games that sort of represent the broader themes is like local folklore, and this is like to do with like folklore, spiritualism. This one was games about kung fu and mythical creatures quite often happen, and then things like social issues as well. We actually get a lot of games about things like housing and wealth inequality, to do with like social and political issues in Hong Kong there. So yeah, that's what I hope I can bring to the panel tonight. Thanks.
That's amazing. Thank you, Rhys. And I think we're moving pretty fast, but next, let's go to Sun's presentation. Are you ready, Sun?
No problem. Okay. Hello, my name is Sun Park from South Korea, pretty far from Finland. I'm a game developer. I make games as creative director at our game studio called Total Cream, and I also organize experimental game festival called Out of Index in Seoul in every year. And also I'm organizing Global Game Jam as a regional organizer of Global Game Jam in South Korea. And also I did a weird, cool, long-term game jam project called Project 99 Cents. That's what I talk today. So Project 99 was like monthly game jam project with 6 members. from December 2016 to May 2019, we made 35 games, which are all very crazy mechanic. So we gathered every month and made some experimental games. From time to time, we made several games, or sometimes we made only one game with all 6 members. And after we made some games in each month, we packed them all and sell it for 99 cents. That's why it's called Project 99. So during over 2 years, and while making 35 games, I learned some points from our long-term game jam project. So we started with 3 people, and the end of project, we were just six people, and 6 people made 2 or 3 games in every month. So we consisted in only 2 or 3 members in a specific teams for each game, and that was pretty enough to focus experimental ideas. And also, I think almost nobody could make money with game jam in every month. So every members has their main job. So we need to gather only one weekend in a month. So we just cut off very good idea, which need pretty long time to make it. And we just choose only tiny, crazy idea for short time development. So experimenting with small groups in short time could make you focus in one shiny idea. So I recommend to make your team smaller and focus something you like. And also the most important thing for us was releasing them in public as a paid game package. Releasing game is very important. In most of game jam, especially before each I/O, only several game jam games publish it in public. So I think the philosophy of game jam is more like studying or having fun with game development, but releasing in public releasing in public force you make a whole well-made gameplay session. And also, I think making game is a kind of making a good presentation about what is fun, you think, to people. So making a good game build as a public release version would be really helpful to make your game development muscle stronger and stronger. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you, Son. And Yuri and Anna will be the last but not the least. I think you're muted.
Yes, sorry, as the UI hopped. to the top of the screen when I started sharing. So I've already spoiled a few slides here, but let's try to go back. So hi, I'm Yuri.
And I'm Anna. Yeah, we're in the same room now because we live together.
And I guess a little bit about us first. So as I said, I'm Yuri. I'm a game designer at Rovio, working on a soft launch title called Supernatural City. I've previously worked at Seriously and before that at Rovio as well, doing various things. Like I'm now in game design, but I've done level design and player support, QA, submissions, and all that jazz. And then outside of work, I do a lot of music, and that then translates to me doing music and sound effects for game jams.
And I'm Anna. So I also work at Rovio. I am also a game designer. I lead the game design on A/B Friends. In the past, I worked like exclusively with indie companies like Unicorn Pirates, Playmore Games. Even had my own studio for a while. I'm a game designer professionally, but in our jam games, I do all the art. That's what I do, art. And we're a bit different in that we always jam with the same people. We jam with the three of us. It's me, Yuri, and our little friend Dan, who does the code for us. He was not invited to this panel because he's not special enough, but he does the code for us. He rips his hair out and we add changes in the last minute. And we have a little jam team of 3 people.
And here are some of the games that we've made together with various various permutations of our group of 3. Generally, actually, all of the ones on this screen have been made at either Alaka Jam or Ludum Dare. So we
not this one, the card one. I added a slide in here without Yuri's.
Okay, permission. Well, that was done at Global Game Jam. So the cards that are on our eyes in the previous slides are from this jam. But generally, we tend to do jams that are online, so we can do them from the comfort of our own home. And generally, the games that we tend to make are kind of simulation-y, maybe a little bit unconventional, but still really lighthearted and goofy. So we never take ourselves too seriously when making these games.
Yeah, I think goofy is definitely the word that we use. We try to make them as fun as possible just for ourselves. We make so many jokes when we are making the game that they all get added in. So yeah. So what did you learn, Yuri, from game jams?
So as I generally tend to do the music and sounds, what ends up happening is for every single game, I'll try out a new musical style, and sometimes it's literally doing that style, and most of the time it's just putting my own twist on it. So our last game jam ended up with a soundtrack that was a lot more cinematic than I'm used to working with. And then previous ones have included some new jack swing, which I've never made before, or then various genres in any case. I think that kind of helps. I'm someone who really enjoys different types of music, so it's great to be able to have kind of a forum where I can try out different genres, even if I wouldn't necessarily outside of game jam start a project with that genre. With jams often comes new instruments, so somehow I've ended up running to the store and picking up a new instrument for every jam. For Dig Deep, I went out to the store to buy a recorder, which I then ended up screeching into the microphone to make some parts of the soundtrack. So a lot of it is learning to make the most of your lack of skill at instruments that you haven't had before, which is fun. And that kind of segues into using everything and anything around the house to make sound. So we were talking before about how anything and everything can be used to make sounds, and things that you don't expect to sound a certain way can sound a certain way once you edit them or change the pitch of them or something like that. And something that comes with that territory is learning how to perform with different household items as if there were instruments. So, for instance, in our last jam, I use a bowl filled with water and then a whiskey glass to kind of simulate water droplets in a cave. So and that comes with knowing how to or figuring out how to perform that so it sounds convincing. And then I guess like as a general note is just like getting better, more efficient, and more consistent with what I do. And I think with each jam, like I've somehow, at least to my ear, it's sounded better than the last time, or I've been able to take something into consideration that I didn't before. Hannah?
Yeah, it sounds great every time. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's better than before. It sounds amazing every time you make music. I'm astounded by how you can do it. Yeah, so what did I learn? Well, concretely, last time we made a jam, I learned a new software. I usually only illustrate things in Illustrator, so I never really used and we usually just make sim games, not really like gaming games. So I never used a Untitled software before, and it was really hard to get used to it. But I'm so glad I learned it because I can use it in the future as well. And I'm really happy that we got to do a game like that. I also learn every time like how much I can actually get done, and I love pushing my limits to see how much more I can get in. Usually I am at my limit, but sometimes I really surprise myself by how much I can get done. And the last thing is, since we always jam with the same three people, it's really nice to jam with the same three people. I'm like, I know that Somali and others like always have different teams, and that's really cool. And but when I jam, I really like to have like a cozy time and like, oh, we're gonna take the weekend, we're gonna make a game, it's gonna be really fun. I know what to expect. Like we work so well together, and every jam I kind of like try to be more efficient and set up my process. Like, okay, this is how Dan wants me to export files. This is how like I can use the symbols in the Illustrator to make things much easier, to make changes much easier. So yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Yuri and Anna. That was amazing. So yeah, so many different views so far. And we'll be on the screen with everybody pretty soon, I guess.
Yes.
So let's start the discussions. So many different perspectives. There's so many things actually in the jamming cultures that we don't know because the things are pretty local. Sometimes like Anna and Yuri were describing that they have been doing their own type of jam processes for a long time with the same team. So it forms these microcultures, whether they are in the cities, in different countries, in different continents, or even in different living rooms, so to speak. But yeah, let's try to kind of get a little bit of grasp of this. But I would like to ask first from all the panelists that what was like either like where did you hear about game jams first, or what was your first? How was your first jam experience like? And I would like to shoot this again to Samuli first, because like the first jam experience, I know that has been quite maybe surprising. I don't know.
Yeah, so I was at Kajaani studying game development, and then the Global Game Jam came. So Global Game Jam was my first game jam of many people, like many people have, and we made this awesome game where you use a DDR dancing pad and a Guitar Hero controller simultaneously. Didn't sleep at all. Game was hardly working, but the end result was awesome and everyone loved it. So it really like hooked me up to this kind of rapid game development scene. And at the time, I wasn't very comfortable with any of the game development tools, coding, art, or audio, or anything. But I think the jam really like showed and proved to myself, like, oh, I can do this.
And what was the year? Was it like 2012?
2011.
11. And now the game is actually at the Finnish Museum of Games.
Yes, so that it happened to like catch a little bit of funfair around Finland because people really love the videos of the game, because you don't usually dance around with the Guitar Hero controller in your hand while playing video games.
And the name of the game was?
Hyper Manly Rainbow Chest Hair Shooter.
I never remember which order these words are, but yeah.
Yeah, we got this award, and they etched the names like this kind of like rotating award around Finland, and every year they etched a new game to that. And our game name took space of 2 games because it was too long.
How about others? Where did you hear about Game Jams first?
I guess I could say that I think I heard about them from Jonas Turner, who's quite a prominent like audio figure in the Finnish and also like internationally in the indie scene. And the first one I went to was actually I think the Assembly Game Jam. I wonder if it was 2013 maybe. And I just happened to be there. I was invited by Jonas to listen to his talk there, and then we ran into some friends who were looking for an audio person, and I was like, oh, I could I could do that. I didn't actually end up staying at Assembly, but I went home to work on the jam, and that was my first experience. We did like a little zombie game, and I got my first taste of game jamming.
For me, it was a global game jam, as well as Samuli. I think I passed on 2013 because the concept seemed so weird to me. But then by the time 2014 came, I was like, I got into a game development study group in our local university, and yeah, we made a platforming game without a level designer, so that was a horrible mistake. So that's what I did for another game jam that I took part in, and then I started recognizing patterns not to follow in the future.
Yeah, maybe I can say something as well. So my first game jam was in England. I was in university still. It was 2011. Game jams, like I had never heard of them before. And these people like invited us, or we somehow applied, and they paid for our housing and our food there as well for 3 days. And I had no idea what I was signing up for. I was doing a game development course, so I went there with my friend James and my friend Mike, and we ended up making like a little game with a little panda, like a platformer game. And it was the best experience I think I've ever had jamming, because it set me up to really, like, it shocked me how much I could get done in one day, in 1 or 2 days. Because before that, I was doing university projects, and our games took like 6 months to complete. And this is like 3 days, we have a game. Like, holy crap, this is amazing. Why haven't I been doing this? Like, I can do this all the time. Of course, I can't do it all the time because of burnout. But it really showed me, like, if I applied myself and worked the whole weekend, I can get a game done, like a full game. It was like eye-opening. I was so happy. Yeah, that was my experience.
So you got almost like bribed into the scene. Everything was paid for you. Yeah,
it was crazy. Like, looking back on it, like, they paid for our housing to stay in like a hotel and food. Like, what?
Yeah.
Oh.
So anybody else with the bribing experiences?
I could go next. So similar to Kasper, I also passed on the first time I heard about game jams. And that was, so I was studying to be an art teacher. I was doing my bachelor's back in 2014. I think I heard about this because my partner was going to a game jam. And I was like, I don't have any skills that apply. So I didn't go. But then in 2015, he and his friends were able to convince me, and I went, and it was super fun. We made a game about like being stuck in an elevator together with strangers. It's a very Finnish nightmare kind of game, psychological horror. And I ended up like scanning fabrics and textures and kind of editing them and stuff. It was very strange since I was an art teacher student. So I did know digital art, like basics, kind of basics of using photo editing software and stuff, but I think I did my graphics then in like Photoshop Elements, maybe. Like it was that kind of time. But I was really inspired by the whole thing, and then I was kind of hooked, and especially kind of on the learning aspects, like just how much you can learn by going to this kind of event. The game itself doesn't run because it turns out if you put like 25 transparent PNG files in layers on top of each other, that goes, your graphics card doesn't like that. If you're loading in them all at the same time. And they're kind of huge, but it was fun.
That's great. Reese, how did you find about Game Jams first? Was it just that it came with the job?
Yeah, kind of. Well, I was studying at the time. I was doing my master's degree. And it was mentioned in the game design class, because actually my professor was Dr. Hannah Verman, was the one who actually brought Game Jam to Hong Kong originally. So she mentioned it to the class. And then I joined through that. But I'm not really like a programmer or designer or anything. I'm more of a writer, so I don't need to be doing stuff the whole time. So I sort of also volunteered. So I was doing sort of logistical things on the side as well as that. And then, from then on the next year, just joined the organizing committee to sort of start doing more organizing things.
That's great. Son, how did you come up with the kind of joining of the things in jams?
To me, my first game jam was Global Game Jam 2013. Group of indie developers in Seoul organized one and only global game jam site in South Korea, and I was co-organizer of that jam, and it was huge with over 200 people. So I thought that like, oh yeah, this is whole size of game jam culture in South Korea.
Wow.
And then at that time, I really liked the atmosphere of game jam. Like nobody talks about business model or like market taste and so on. So everybody focused only fun game mechanics and their passion. And that was pretty nice to me, because I, as a university student who study about making game, I always concerning about thinking more about business rather than game itself. So that game jam atmosphere was pretty perfect to me, and that's why I dived in game jam culture.
That's very nice. I was wondering during your presentation that which one of the games was the most successful from the 99 cents project, because I'm like kind of wondering whether that kind of way of making the game jam games and packaging them reveals something about the design of those games, that maybe some of them people pick more than the others. Have you noticed that one of them would be kind of rising above the others in popularity?
Actually, we made total $3,000 with 35 games. So, yeah.
They were packaged it together, so you can't really know which one of them would be like most popular, or how did it work?
Yeah, so I don't know the data of a specific game, but I could find the data for each packages.
All right.
But yeah, to be honest, our first package was most popular thing because at that time when we announced about our project, there was no kind of the monthly project like us. So yeah, tons of game developer in South Korea was, I think, they are a bit shocked, and and yeah, word of mouth was pretty run well. So yeah, our first package was most popular thing.
And what year was that? Like when you did the first package?
It was December 2016.
2016. Yeah, there's been time in between now. I had also a question to Kride and maybe to Reese, now that I found out that you're a narrative personal kind of writer or author. So I'm wondering, like, what is the role of narrative design nowadays, at least in game jams? Do you get to, like, I know, Reese, that you organize a lot of these jams, but do you also get to jump in and do some writing? So both of you maybe share some info on what is to be an author of the narrative bits in game jam games.
Maybe I can start. Maybe, yeah. For me, so I've transitioned from graphics into narrative design, since that's kind of like, to me, it's like storytelling through games. That's the thing I'm interested in. So interestingly, it's like it kind of works if you get to be in the room when you're making the concept, the idea of your game, then you already get to like make better narrative design than in many cases if you go into a process much later on in the game. So already from like, what are you playing as, and what kind of abilities are these mechanics going to like translate into? What do you call them, and where is your game set? Who do you play as? And you get to like, I found it really fun to be able to be there at the very like first, pitching the idea stage, molding it into something that's going to be narratively more cohesive. And then later towards the like, during the process, if you want to be writing, that's absolutely possible. But it's kind of slightly different to do that, just the writing compared to like the more cohesive like narrative design aspects of it. I have had like situations where the writing is the kind of last thing that's like able to get finished, because that's usually like it's going to fit into stuff and it has to be edited, and it's sometimes it's a bit hard to implement, but you learn that as well at game jams. So that's happened. And then also since I've been doing more solo jams and learning how to use Twine, how to use RenPy, that allows me to just go kind of writing first into game making. So that's been my experience. Very, very nice for doing writing and narrative design.
Yeah. How about Reese? Are you able to do any writing in the jams that you organize at?
Not recently. The role of organizer is a bit too large these days. But I could say something maybe that I've noticed. The people who do the writing and stuff on the games, often in our jam site, because there's so many teams. And they have to sort of pitch their game or something. They have to get really good at condensing the narrative or the story into like the short elevator pitch, because oftentimes the judges don't have time to play every single game or something if there's awards going out. So they need to get the concept across really fast. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
all about condensing it.
Yeah, that's all about being an author and good with narratives, I guess. So
I
also the role in there. Yeah.
I also have that experience being an organizer and trying to jam. It's not always such a.
It's not as, and I see Kasper also doing a face there. So
it's fun though when you like set yourself like, no, I have 45 minutes to jam during this weekend. Yeah. But
Solip, I would love to get an audience question or something from the students in between. I have some separate questions for the panelists to put on between of the other questions, but let's try to have something from the audience or from the students.
Yes, we actually have a couple of questions about COVID-19 and jam. So I think this is quite relevant to us, like the COVID-19, everything done remotely. So here's the question is, how do you see the future of game jamming, especially in this COVID-19 time? So first, how you're dealing with COVID-19 and jam, and second, what will be the like fast, quick, prompt future for jam if this pandemic continues? Anyone?
I think it highly depends on like the type of jam you're running and the type of audience you're getting at. So part of the thing that I talked about, but I didn't like went into details, is that we, with like focusing on the fact that we consider the networking aspect or making friend aspect of the game jam as the most important one. That made us move away from awards, from prizes, from presentations. We ended up doing just kind of slightly directed free-for-all, let's play everybody's games. And it's been working out great for us. So when it came to organizing last year's edition, it was obviously a huge challenge how to translate that into an online environment. And the jam happened. I think people were overall happy with how it all worked. We had tried to emulate the environment that we would do normally on site, but obviously you can't get the same types of interactions and all of that. That will be slightly dramatic, but I don't think we can do that. Like I just don't think this is doable, because people in an online environment, in my experience at least, will try to will not let themselves to be as I don't know, happy to work away from working and then just, I don't know, play some game or just go on a walk together or do something outside of their plan.
Do you use Discord for the online version?
Yeah, we use Discord.
Yeah, so it doesn't really give you everything that in a physical space would be, but maybe a bit help.
Yeah. I mean, we had like activities or just like playing games together or like micro talks and stuff like that. But I think like we used to do a lot of just volunteers walking around the site and like trying to get people away from the computers and entice them. And I know we did barbecue and just have like some random stuff that would happen that people didn't necessarily know about, or we were just coming up on the fly. This is just not applicable in an online environment. So for a game jam like that, this kind of it diminishes what you want to do. And I mean, it kind of becomes, you can try to replicate all of that, but it's the workload increases super hard if you want to actually give someone that type of experience. But then you have game jams that don't, like, I don't think Ludum Dare has been affected in any like negative way. And I think there are like on-site game jams that are also very like, okay, this is the theme and this is the space and go.
Yeah. Krina was raising her hand like, do you want to add something that Kasper is here kind of about?
I agree with a lot of this. So I helped organize the Pride Game Jam last year, and we had to we were starting organizing it just as the pandemic struck, and we were kind of planning on being an on-site jam, and we were having like speakers come over, and we were thinking of like hosting people for a huge pajama party, and it was then all of that kind of like fizzled a little bit, and we had to replan everything. But it ended up working out really nicely, and we were able to have participants from France. We were able to have kind of a more inclusive kind of jam in that sense, that we didn't require people to geographically come to us. And I think that was pretty nice, especially since we are in Helsinki, we're in Finland. So then, for people who want to try jamming in a Finnish jam, that hasn't been done that much. So it was good that way. And this year we're planning fully online, and we're kind of exploring what's possible that's not kind of a possibility in an on-site jam. What can we do that are kind of cool things for an online jam? But it's different. Yeah, for sure it's different. I also did Global Game Jam this year as an online jam, and it kind of I was jamming with my usual suspects, so I knew how to work with them and so on, and it kind of almost felt the same, but it was still not quite the same. And then especially those kind of like moments of like, let's just go for pizzas, and then we record some random like gutter sounds and use those in our game because we just happen to come across like gutter that sounds super cool or whatever. That doesn't happen that much in the online setting. So yeah. It's different, but then again, I've also done 7 jams during the pandemic. So
yeah, it's not affecting.
It's not affecting my like willingness to jam, but it does affect kind of like what you get out of the jam and kind of the experience.
Samuli, you've been traveling extensively before the pandemic. So are you missing that, or how do you kind of give the same experiences that you've used to have with jams, or where have you gone with your jam planning right now?
So I've done a lot of online jams, but as many people, I've been jamming their online jams mostly with people who I previously know, or then I just do solo jams. And I really miss the local jams and traveling, because previously I already did a mixture of online jams, and then these local jams were like always the highlight. And I was waiting more to see more of those jams. So now I'm eagerly waiting when we can get back to the local jams. And
what is your next travel plan, like after pandemic? Where do you want to go?
I haven't thought so far yet.
Korea, Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong. I haven't jammed before yet, but most likely somewhere warm. So I always like to get away
not
from
Antarctis.
Not yet. That's
Okay.
I need a sponsor for that. It's
all right.
A bit of an expensive route.
Yeah. So how did the Global Game Jam feel for the Hong Kong side being so large? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, we basically just moved everything to Discord. So we actually have the last two in Hong Kong were online only, because even the year before we were just getting the pandemic sort of first, I guess.
All right, you had it before us, so you were there already.
So we've
on
had
the January.
2 online years now. Yeah. We moved to online to Discord. Took a little bit of a hit to the numbers because people are a little bit anxious, I guess, or had other things on their mind. Also, I guess we couldn't really go out and we do a lot of face-to-face advertising with around the universities that we couldn't do because classes were cancelled and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really just relying on the network of the people who have sort of come before and who wanted to spread it out and getting everyone involved. It was good that we do have a little bit of a reputation of people who come back year after year that sort of at least maintained that. But yeah, there was a lot missing, I think, from those face-to-face and the human interactions that sort of spark those moments of inspiration, right?
Did you drop with numbers of the participants, or were you able to kind of keep on with
yeah, we did.
Numbers?
We had a drop. Let me double check. Yeah, 2 years ago we were on 409, and then 1 year ago it was 328, and then most recently 230.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of drop. Yeah, dramatic. Right. So I'm going to ask quickly about the Seoul scene for game jams. Sun, you've been running also analog jam sites. So this is probably quite drastic for running a board game jam.
Yeah, running board game jam through online was pretty tough. So we also use Discord server for our game jam. And in conclusion, all teams made a kind of spreadsheet, so which have several macros which could shuffle cards, adjust cells in spreadsheet, or something like
So you turned your games into Excel games instead of the
yes, right.
That's kind of fun.
So spreadsheet have a very good grid system to make a kind of tiles for the board game, and also there are tons of cells, and you could hide and make it appear to people from time to time, depending your game mechanics. So yeah, most of people use Google spreadsheet, so people could edit in real time with other team members. And also another type was physical game with webcams. So like it was kind of quiz game. So there was some quiz and presenter should explain something without speaking, and then people should find what is answered. Yeah, something like that. And that was pretty fun, but yeah, actually I prefer offline version of board game jam.
It's amazing how you were able to kind of solve the whole thing by inventing something really new. So this is what I also personally love in game jams, that no matter where we are and where we do the game jams, we just go with what we have. I'm gonna, before I give, I don't know if Grete wanted to comment on that, but Yuri and Anna, the way that I understand that you've done the jams, that maybe COVID hasn't impacted at all, but has it?
No, I don't think it has.
So has it been like even better?
Dan also lives next to us, so and he works with us. So we're like a tight little bubble of game developers.
So COVID doesn't exist in your jam universe at all?
No, but we did try to jam when he still lived in London, and we lived here. We did jam online, and it was not as good. But I just want to say it's much better when you're all in person together. Yeah.
So you would still, like, if you attend a game jam, you would be in a same space with all of you three.
Yeah. It's so nice. Like we meet for brunch and then we make our game. It's like so cozy. It's such a nice weekend.
Do you ever fight with this kind of pre-existing tight-knit team? Do you ever have any disagreements with the design direction?
Definitely. It's always in good fun because that's the other thing about knowing your team. Like, you're really good friends, so kind of all your disagreements, like, you know, you're gonna, it's a very safe space to be in. But I do fight all the time with Dan, especially like if we want to include something crazy and he's already coding, and it's like, how do we do this? It's like, no, I can't fit that into my schedule.
Right. So, well, that's kind of one of the things in jams is obviously it's challenging to do teamwork. I guess I could shout this question to Samuli, because you've been working with so many different teams, and we've heard that Yuri and Anna, you solved the kind of trouble and challenge of the teams by kind of iterating on the same team dynamics after one jam and another. But Samuli, you have some pretty amazing different kinds of jams with different teams. Do you have anything to share us about how the magic happens when you work with unknown people, like strangers?
Yeah, I think the key is to like listen what the other people are actually saying, like not just listen, but like trying to understand things deeply. And the more different your cultures or your roles are, the more clear you have to be in your communication. So, for example, a couple of years ago, I was in Shenzhen, China, jamming, and there was a little bit of a language barrier because my Chinese isn't very good and their English is a little bit broken, but like it was manageable. So what we did with four of us, we were explaining the game idea to each other until everyone was explaining the same thing. And that took maybe 3 hours of drawing and talking and thinking, but everyone was really happy at the end because we were actually making the same game. And I think that's a big issue with many game jam teams, even if you are speaking the same language, that you are actually making a different game.
Right. So do you use this at work or something? Where did you got this technique?
I've done a lot of game jams, so I've been slowly getting better at communicating and making sure that everyone is
by
doing the same game.
Indeed, art of learning by doing. So while you've been attending jams, in your mind, you've been thinking like, let's just, do 3 hours of discussing.
Yes, and
this.
Usually when I explain people that like, let's do this, people are very receptive that, okay, this actually sounds like a good idea, especially if they've jammed before, because they know what kind of troubles you get when you have a disagreement with the vision.
Right. Kasper, you've been running a jam that focuses on friendships and getting to know the other people. Like, how do you facilitate, and what do you have learned how do you make the teaming better? How do you match people? Do you just throw them to each other's faces, or do you let them find each other? How do you work?
I think we tried different. We tried different exercises. Definitely didn't get good in that. I think the thing that we like realized the most, that for a big group of the organizers, the more like somewhere between 15th and 25th game jam you attend, you tend to care about if the game works out less and less, because you realize that this just happens. So you try to cherish the time that you have and do like all of the crazy random stuff that you didn't even think that you will end up doing. Like last year, I remember that we inspired by Jam, we like made a spreadsheet when anyone could sign up to like take a slot and do something, and we had
so Kasper is referring to a festival called Jam that we run in Finland, that we've had like workshops.
Yes, that I miss dearly.
Oh yeah, we do all miss that.
So I remember that we had a slot for people just sitting and watching like sloth GIFs or videos or something like that. Like that was all that was happening. People were just chilling and talking, and that was the thing that happened. And we tried to encourage as much stuff like that. That's just outside of like a music jam that you will end up having at every game jam at some point. It's inevitable. But like just having, we had Super Mario Tennis tournaments, or I don't even remember half of the
How do you fit all this in the? Is the Slavic Jam also like 48 hours, or is 40, it a bit longer?
I think it's 46 or 47.
46. Like okay. How do you fit all this in?
We have the Hyde Park open 24 hours a day, and we do try to encourage people to take very long and extensive breaks.
So it would be like, if you think about development time, maybe think about like 5-hour game jam.
It depends. There are people who will just cram and they won't like let themselves be distracted. But there's a lot of people who will do like 5 hours, or there will just, it's like, if you think about it, if you take part, if like let's say if one activity takes half an hour, if you just take part in like 4 of them, it's not like you cut out a lot of time from the jamming time. Which is, let's say that if you sleep, we also encourage sleeping for 8 hours, preferably more if someone wants to, but like just like for people to take this time as a place to learn something, meet new people, make a game, but also relax and don't like crunch yourself to death. So in the end, we then don't end up cutting out too much time.
Yeah. Reese, how is it for the Hong Kong Jam? Like you have so many, like you had 400 people. How does one ever facilitate team forming in a 400 people jam? Or do you?
In a very difficult way. Yeah, a lot of people do come with their own teams formed, but what we do is we encourage everyone to sort of mix together at the beginning as much as possible. And also we sort of host, after the theme has been announced, we host a sort of like open pitching session. So anyone can go up on the stage with an idea and say, we get the microphone and say, hey, I have this idea and I'm looking for a programmer, I'm looking for a sound person or whatever, and sort of like basically either pitch the idea, or they can say, go up on the stage and say, hey, I'm a programmer who's like on my own. If anyone's looking for someone, then I can come and join. So it's kind of like pitching either the idea or pitching yourself. We sort of allow people to do that. I think also the other nice thing is that the ratio, because of the student professional ratio, a lot of the professionals come as like teams or come from studios, but then they go and split off and go and work with student teams or something like that is quite nice. And then there's a lot of cool idea sharing and sort of ideas come from that. Yeah.
Does it work in Hong Kong as a kind of a slightly recruiting process also for the established game developers in the city? Or is there a connection in that?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes they will see if anyone's interested in joining companies or something afterwards, or just general networking. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think, Solip, we did have a student question about how does the game jams organizing or participating has been affecting your own careers in game development or elsewhere in the ecosystem. So maybe, for instance, San, you had it already in your presentation that it has made your game development muscles better when you've done game jams. So do you want to add something on that?
Yeah, I think experience about whole process for making one games in several days itself is pretty nice to be a professional game developer, because especially in South Korea, most of project in a big game company are kind of online games, and I mean like game as service. So make a whole game from the scratch to the released version takes pretty long time. But in the game jam, you could experience the whole process for making games, and that is the most important thing, as I think.
How about others? Yuri and Anna, you work as designers at Rovio. So how does your silly, funny games and fighting with Dan kind of improve your skills at work?
I guess just in general, it's kind of a break from what we usually do at work. But I'd say that like just in general, like the more you do something, so whether it's doing the music part or the game design part, I said like the more you do it, the better you are at it, regardless of the context. And then when it's come to like at least like the first jam that I ever went to, it was like the people there were people from the industry. So and I have met people from the industry through game jams. So it's a way to kind of network.
Anna, do you want to add to it, or just that you agree with Yuri?
Yeah, I agree that it's great to have a break from game development by doing game development, but it's like you're working on one game development project all the time, and you kind of want to do something for yourself, something creative, something that you can't really do at work, but that's still kind of related to your field. And it's also great to share it with everyone and have them be like, oh, you made a game, that's so cool, and to see what you've accomplished. I don't know if it really like helps me concretely at work. I guess like always communication and learning processes always does. Like game jams have taught me so much. But yeah, it's just fun. It's fun to have a break from work by doing more work.
It is a little bit perverse that game developers have a break of making games by making games, but it does make sense, I guess. Samuli, you once said that almost everything that you've learned, maybe I mistake with someone else, but almost everything that you know about game development you've learned with jams, or so much?
Quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
But I could turn it to a bit of a different discussion here, is that I've used game jam games in all of my applications when I've applied for work.
Right.
Successfully. So you can use definitely game jam games as an example of different kind of things you are doing.
And I think that January's panel, this was also chimed in. So yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Can I just jump in here? I just want to say back to my the first game jam that I made with a little panda bear that barely worked, and it was made in Flash. You better believe I had that on my resume for every game job that I applied to. So I love whenever I have to look at resumes, I love seeing from interns or whatever, or trainees who haven't had experience. I love seeing game jam games on there. It really shows me that you have been able to complete a game cycle, have done the whole thing, and you know what goes into it. You know, the amount of work. It's not just theory. You actually have practice in this. So yeah. And
I knew that Kriti would like to add to this, so go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add to this also, since narrative is in games. It's a very, very competitive field. It's very hard to break in. So there, I do feel like if I hadn't done a lot of game jam games, I'd never kind of find any confidence to pitch myself as a narrative designer. Like that never would have happened. So I think that's definitely like been a huge thing. And then the other thing that like also is especially in something like that is you get to learn the tools that you would be needing to know to implement your skills, because they're usually like third-party plugins and stuff that you might not, use during your student projects or stuff like that. So it's really, really good for kind of trying out something new that you'd like to take into work as well, has been my experience.
Do you keep up with your kind of life-wide learning processes with jams as well? And
oh yeah, sure. And then of course, like you get that like confidence, which is super important. Like especially if you're part of any kind of marginalized group in the game industry, having that kind of like being able to look at your sort of CV and say like, hey, I have some experience. I belong here. I don't need to gatekeep myself from this thing. Is something I think that
jump off
with
that as well. That game jams are a place where you can actually complete a game. Whereas like if you're like, oh, I'm just going to take like a week or a month to make a game, you're not going to complete that game. Just do a game jam. Like you will get a complete game out of that weekend. Just do it. Even if you have a side project that's going to take you months to do, like if you want something on your resume, go to a game jam.
Do like I sometimes feel like, does anybody ever again do games without game jams? I mean, like these eternity projects alone with yourself. Do you do that? Or is it all about just jam games these days? Or do you have something on the side as a pöytälaatikko novel? I don't know what the English version of that is, but you put it somewhere to wait for 2 decades and then maybe release it at one day.
I think we're
Does
all
that
ashamed
happen?
to say that we do have that. I don't know, at least in my experience, like everyone I meet is working on something on the background, like silently.
So the jams haven't taken that space. They just add to it.
They've made me feel better about myself because I've actually completed something. Like it's something to show for my time being on this planet. Like, look, this is the thing I've done. It's out here. You can play it. Not like this is the thing I've been doing for 2 years. Nothing here yet. Don't look, please.
So sometimes game jam will add it to that pile because you make something that you get inspired by, and then you're like, I really want to finish this. It will take me 2 months, and I would like be finished with another project. And then, I have 4 projects like that in my drawer box. As that would be, yeah. Oh well.
San, have you been taking some of your experimental gameplay projects to your company? Have you been using the things that you do in jams to the more commercial well, they were also commercial projects, but yeah, what you know what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I released 2 commercial games so far in our studio, and the second one was made in Game Jam for the first version. So it was pretty long story. So the game is called 6180 The Moon, and the number 6180 was 6180 seconds, which was the time we spent for making the first version in a specific game jam. So after we made that prototype, and we really liked the actual game mechanics in that prototype, so we moved that game to our studio's official project. And also I'm working in the new project with our studio members for now. And it was also from my personal prototype in the game jam. So yeah, I do recommend to people to do game jam to make shiny ideas, to grow it off to their main project. So yeah, it's like a fitting idea. Yeah.
Kasper, have you been using any of your code, or I don't know how much you actually jam in game jams, but have you been using any of the bits in the jams in your daily work?
I think I had some examples, but it's been a while since I last jammed. I don't know. It kind of I think if there was if there was no pandemic, I would definitely go, because I like for me, it became more traveling and jamming. So I've making friends through the game jams that I went to. I would just go to visit those friends that I met and made there. But yeah, I definitely had some samples when it was usually outside of my specialty or something. Like I would just learn something new, and the game jam then employed that knowledge later.
I'm getting slightly distracted. My dog is whining at the background, but I'm trying to hold on with that. So, do we have a question from the audience, from the students that would add on this? I'm going to go into other topics after that question.
Okay, can we have also a bit casual discussion about what was the weirdest experience that you encountered in the jam? So there were a couple of questions, surprisingly. A lot of students actually asked, what is the weirdest game jam that you've been to? So I would say the term weird here is funny weird or enthusiastic weird, not like bad weird. Let's kind of go with that. Can we quickly go around and share that experience before we move on to the next topic?
Or maybe the weirdest jam that you've heard. Maybe you haven't attended, but you would love to.
Oh, that sounds also a really cool idea. Yeah.
Maybe I could start. 1 year, actually, the venue that we normally get, the room was already booked. But luckily, the partner that we're working with, they sort of said, hey, we have another room. It can accommodate that amount of people, like that massive amount of people. It's just been built, but it's not furnished. So it was basically like a concrete room without any lights. So we had to sort of change the jam to be jamming in the dark. So we sort of had these, so we had to sort of get a bunch of floodlights and stuff, borrow them from, the different sort of film departments at the universities to have some light at least. But during the daytime and like the nighttime especially, it was like extremely dark. So we sort of had this extra modifier of it being like, this is the special jam in the dark edition. That was
wasn't it dangerous to be in an unfinished space? Like, how did you do that?
It was finished as far as like it was all sort of
safe.
It was just safe. It was safe. It just wasn't furnished, I guess you could say.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of cool. Yeah. Did the participants like that? Did they want to come back like next time as well?
I think they missed some of the sort of comfier elements, but definitely a unique experience, at least for them.
Yeah. Other experiences with weirdness in jams.
I guess that's weird, but Splash Jam, which is a jam that took place on the cruise or like a ship that sail along the coast of Norway.
Did you take part in that?
Yeah, I took part in the second edition. I don't think it will happen ever again, which makes me super sad because it was an amazing experience.
Right. It was run twice, or was it 3 times that it was run?
I think it was twice, but I'm not 100% sure. So
jacuzzi, watching Northern Lights on the deck of the ship. Yeah.
I've also heard that somewhere in East Europe, there's also jam in the castle.
There was
also in Sweden.
It was in Sweden,
also in Sweden. Okay.
But I think that there's been castle locations in Global Game Jam, at least like a couple of them in some years. Yeah.
Frida, you wanted to add something? You raised your hand.
Yeah, I've had a few weird experiences with jamming in public spaces. So I've jammed in an art museum, which was weird, and then I've jammed at the Science Center Heureka in Finland. Ooh. And that was kind of strange for the Quantum Game Jam 2015. So we were at the Science Center and we were making games for the Planetarium Dome. And then we were allowed to sleep in the Science Center. So some people were sleeping in the exhibit kind of area. And I just remember this, like, when I got up in the morning to go brush my teeth and I had to walk through the whole exhibit in my pajamas. And there's like kids running around with their parents. And I feel like this is strange and weird. And that was kind of a a fun experience at the same time.
San, what do you want? Yeah.
Yeah, this is not my experience, but I heard that some game developers in France did escape room jam. So they spent 2 days for making escape room for real. So in that escape room, the making password in notebook would be a kind of locked thing and something like that. And also sometimes developers used to sitting on the chair in the room and they only answered about specific questions from players. So after the jam, they opened in public for people who really wanted to play escape room. That was, I think that was pretty good idea.
Ooh.
You could do that in Seoul somewhere after the pandemic.
Yeah, I'd love to.
How about others? I know Samuli has some pretty unconventional stuff as well. Maybe we can jump it here.
I can maybe tell the craziest jam that I've been part of. We cycled on a tandem with a friend of mine from Stockholm to Malmö, 600 kilometers. And I built a custom computer to the back of the tandem and programmed a game while cycling. And this was just a joke originally that spin into an actual game jam.
That's pretty kind of a lot of labor for the jam just to make one game.
The average speed was like 15 minutes per word.
Right. Well, not super efficient. Yuri and Anna, do you have anything that you would like to share, like a weird jam that you would like to participate, or jams that you've done?
I think the weirdest jam I've done, I'm very vanilla. The weirdest jam I've done is the train jam, which is going from Chicago to San Francisco in the States. I mean, that was amazing.
That's pretty weird though. Yeah.
I guess, I don't know. It's a very in this group, I guess it's a very normal experience.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, are we aiming too much weird, or why do we do weird stuff with game jams? What do you think? What's the reason for that? Or is it even weird?
At least personally, I think that's what game jams are all about. It's about pushing the limits of yourself and what you can do, right? And giving yourself restrictions, say 48 hours or whatever, but then seeing what you can get away with in that. And it's also kind of where art clashes here, because artists also try to push their limits all the time and come up with new stuff. No one's ever done this before. Let's do it, and within restrictions as well. I don't know.
So there's a little bit of curiosity as well. What happens if I'm in a train, or what happens if we're in the dark, or
my favorite jam that I haven't done because I'm too scared to do it is the 0-hour game jam, which is doing the game in an hour, but when clocks go back. So it's kind of you didn't spend any time on it.
That's Polish origin, right?
Yeah, that's what was organized. That used to happen during games industry conference in Poznań. He would rent a tram that would go around the city for an hour, and everybody who would work on that would get on that tram. So you would have to have a laptop that lasts that hour.
So did it actually was during the night the tram was running, or was it first a tram jam?
Yeah.
Tram jam. Okay. That's super
cool. It was from 3 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Yeah, we've been participating that, and Anna, I can guarantee to you that you will be surprised how much you can get done, or surprised how little you can get done. Yeah, I did one art piece for a game jam in a 0-hour game jam.
Yeah, for 0-hour game jam, it's I did it. I've done it multiple times, but once I did it when I had some friends over who had never done games before, and they wanted to join. So I actually teach them before the jam how to use RemPy, and they made a visual novel in that hour as their first game.
What?
So the 0-hour first 0-hour jam.
I made one turnip. What one entire RemPy game? Okay.
Yeah, it had one selection.
I think that I've once talked to you, Son, about you going with your friends to a rural kind of a cottage or something and have a game jam there. Did it ever happen? Or was it just an idea?
Oh yeah, I did jam in my grandfather's house in a countryside without internet. So we did a lot of talks instead of searching Google or something.
Because
on the last day, one of my friends tried to tether the data from his phone, and there was the only phone which could tether the data to computers. So that was pretty challenging.
Yeah. We did also survival mode in, I think it was 2016 in the up north in the Finland, but we have such a good reception that we just got lucky that it was cloudy and snowy day that we got to experience a little bit of losing the connection. But otherwise we would have had internet. So it was a little bit sad. Yeah.
We also did with some game design students at Aalto. We did a summer cottage jam, and that was just, we made a board game, but we didn't actually bring much board game supplies. So we were like, I remember like I was doing graphics, so I was painting rocks for the for the game. It was very fun though.
Yeah, but I think that's a good example of like why we do that crazy weird things. It's like it's more of a excuse to do the other thing. I think it's like it's I don't know. I think at some point, like you've enjoyed the game jams and you like the game jam part of that, but you also enjoy the people and the atmosphere. But then, like, if something new comes around that you haven't done yet, or that's just like an exotic experience in some sense, I think that's the thing that's the try. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll just go into the game. But have you ever like been on a train from Chicago to San Francisco? Maybe not, or maybe you've been and it's like such a fun experience that you'll just go into that, not necessarily to make a game.
Right. It's actually pretty beautiful train ride. So it's a great excuse for going a slightly boring train ride because it's 52 hours, but perhaps for us, gamer generation. But I would like to also, like, we do fun, we do fun jams, we enjoy the jams, we enjoy each other's companies. But I would like to address this question to Reese, because there's something very specific about the Hong Kong scene of Game Jam, I guess. I hope you're able to talk about it, because we all know that there's been a little bit of political atmosphere in the city and specifically with the students. And how does that show in the jam games?
It shows in the themes of the games. The jammers in Hong Kong, they really love sort of making games about local issues, social issues, political issues. So there are games that show up about that pretty regularly, and not an insignificant amount, I would say. We actually looked at the sort of proportion of games that are specifically related to Hong Kong or sort of use Hong Kong iconography or sort of the landscape or something like that. And it's a pretty decent amount. I've been thinking actually is probably a good research topic or something to do some comparisons with other jam sites. But yeah, there's always a lot of games sort of related to local issues in Hong Kong.
Have the jam games that have to do with the political issues been used in any of the kind of gatherings or demonstrations or any like advertising or any kind of like artivism that the students would be doing? Have you been seeing them used in their like outside jam contexts?
Not outside of the jam context, I don't think. Yeah. The Hong Kong site is pretty big, but it's still the pretty insulated. Like it doesn't really sort of have much of a reach outside of the jam itself.
Yeah, but it's super interesting. I'm not sure, and it's you have a bit of I assume you have a outsider also perspective to this. So you were not born in Hong Kong, right?
No.
Yeah. So you kind of get to see these cultural differences. So I'm not sure how well I'm, for instance, or you others, how well you kind of can see that there is a local flavor to the jam games. I don't know, Kasper, do you have like a local folklore jumping into the games of the Slavic Game Jam? Is that part of it? Because it's also Slavic. It's called Slavic Game Jam. So is there Slavic stuff that is done in the jams?
Yeah, I think it's mostly to the meme potential of Slavic as like the name was very much not inspired because it was very much inspired by Nordic Game Jam.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, and then the idea, what we didn't know at that time is that Nordic Game Jam is called Nordic Game Jam because Copenhagen is very like closely tied with Malmö, and that it's at its spirit. It's not the Danish Game Jam. It's very much a Nordic Game Jam. And Slavic Game Jam wasn't that, which is not to say that we don't have like local influences. I think it's very natural that people will express their like feelings about what's closest to them, whether it be like about current political climates or like recent events or just memes. And I think Slavic Game Jam having Slavic in its name and Slavicness being kind of a meme culture at this point kind of invites that as well. So we had the fair share of that, sure.
Yeah, right. Samuli, you've been with different countries. Do you see differences in the thematic kind of framework of jam games?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not just the culture that are different in like this normal culture. It's also that many countries people play very different video games.
Yeah.
So the game references and the inspiration of what kind of video games they wanna make differ a lot.
Right. That's very interesting. Solip, would you like to? Do you have something that you would like to address? We're running out of time soon. Just a reminder for everybody that we'll take 1 more hour and chat about like shouting links and stuff for about everything that we've been chatting in our Discord right after the session. But let's try to accommodate 1 more question from the audience.
Right. Okay. So again, coming from the students who are willing to hop on to their first jam experience, what would be the advice for you to give? So there were a lot of questions about what kind of skills do I need? What type of pre-requirements, or what should I need to bring to jam if I want to participate? So for anyone who might be interested in joining the jam in the future, what will be your advice? 1 or 2 tips quickly.
Yuri, you look like you want to say something immediately.
I thought I was looking like I was thinking, but I can say something too. I don't know, just keep an open mind and know that there's so much that you can do. So something I hear a lot is people wondering if they have enough skills or any skills whatsoever to bring to a jam, and you definitely do. There's always something that needs to be done that you can contribute, and whether it's the game design or game testing or setting up the jam pages, and like there's so many things that take up like time and there's space to work in regardless of your perceived skill set.
Anyone wants to add on that, or should I just?
I could add the thing about what you bring to the game jam is that you can come definitely even without a laptop. Like you can do pair programming with someone, or I once did all the art with finger paint because I didn't have a PC with me. So you shouldn't like put any kind of restrictions for coming to the game jam. So just be brave and come there and see what happens. So the open mind is the thing.
And I think that I could add here from research is like it takes the first day of the jam feels awkward, but once you've set in, that feels amazing after that. So just don't leave the jam site, I guess would be important.
Yeah.
Others?
Can I jump in? To what Samuli was saying, actually, to be brave. I just want to say a little bit on that. On Twitter, whenever I talk about game jams or whenever I hear people talk about game jams, there's always a subsection of, a lot of the time it's women or other minority groups that are really afraid of going to a game jam because they don't know what to expect. They don't know if they're good enough. It's a too stressful situation for them. And I just want to say, like, it's going to be okay. You don't have to do anything also. people always say like, well, you have to finish a game. And I know that's like, you should aim to that always, but it's also fine if you don't. Like, if it's your first time, you can set your expectations really high and like miss the mark. It's fine.
Yeah,
just like have a good time. You don't have to come with anything. Just, yeah. Also, my other tip is join a small team. Don't have too big a team.
And why is that? Why big team would be?
Well, okay, from my own experience, I think like if you have a big team, it's like so many more things can go wrong. If you have a small team, like you're always in charge of one thing, and like communication's so much better, and your scope is also much smaller then because you don't like overscope things. So smaller team, smaller scope, like less chance of things going on.
I'm pretty sure that there can be one single person that overscopes the entire project, though.
Yes.
So it's working with humans.
Yeah, it's much easier to overscope when you have like 12 people working on the game. Been there, done that, don't do that. Like this, no.
Wait, there's actually, I would like to do a big team jam. So it's like 100 people in one game only.
Of course, this conversation leads to like, let's do 1,000 people jam.
Right.
That's where these crazy game jams start.
Yeah, indeed. Kride, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I could jump right after here. Also, to kind of continue on what Anna was saying, it's absolutely fine to bring a friend. You don't have to go alone. You don't have to be super brave and go alone to a jam if it's your first jam. And that can be like make or break it. If you're feeling nervous, like reach out to someone you think maybe is interested. And you can also reach out to organizers if you're kind of feeling a bit nervous, like, and hear from them, like, what kind of support do they have in mind for you as a first-time jammer? And then what else do I recommend? I recommend bringing kind of the attitude that you don't necessarily have to get to do any specific thing. So keeping kind of that mind that is open to adjust your ideas to whatever happens at the jam.
Exactly.
What happens at the jam stays at the jam.
Exactly.
I want to use the last 4 minutes for at least some of you to tell us what would be the dream game jam in the near future that you would like to attend to. It doesn't have to exist yet, but what would be the
21.
What to that jam?
Jam 21. I need that.
We'll have to get the pandemic over, but yeah.
That's why it's not going to happen, but I wish it.
It is a dream jam, yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Now it became a dream jam, yes.
Solid, what would be your dream jam to go to?
I first want to go to Korean game jam site. I actually never been to game jam site in Korea, and now that the border is a bit closed at the moment, and I miss my home, so I really want to join game jam experience in Korea. Actually, I only experienced in Finland, surprisingly, so that would be my dream. Again, similar to Casper's notions about.
Do we have like a little bit lower expectation for the dreams now that we don't get to do almost anything?
If the sky is the limit.
There's been, for instance, I know we've been talking regularly with Samuli that Antarctica is just not yet explored with game jams. Yeah, not sure if there was like a global game jam site there or anything. Maybe not yet.
I don't think that there has been, and that's. I want to make a game on every continent, so that's the last frontier.
So you've been to Greenland as well?
Oh no, I'm still missing some of the continents already, but that's the most difficult one to do.
Yeah, that takes a lot of money to arrive, I guess, to the site.
Arctic, Antarctic. Well, was there like Arctic game jam as well already?
I think that the furthest, the northest global game jam site has been the survival mode that we ran. So we should have Arctic. Okay. Well, I see that there's a lot of creative juices coming up from you guys, but maybe we'll move the discussion to Discord. It's getting quite close to the ending time, but if you still have something to shout out as a dream jam.
Can I just say, my dream jam is super boring. I just want a jam with theme that I actually voted on. Every time, none of my themes are chosen.
So you never vote for the one that will be picked in Lulurundare, for instance? No. Okay.
And our team, me, Dan, and Yuri, we all have different opinions about what theme it should be.
Right. But you can always smuggle your own team there to add to the team of the... So Ludum Dare has this voting system for the community to suggest the themes, and then you vote for a certain period of time. A lot of the jams just gives the theme as given by the organizers. And there's like different ways that this is done. For instance, Global Game Jam might use like a huge committee for coming up with the theme for many months. And I've heard that the Nordic Game Jam just, brainstorms that like a couple of days before, at least in the past. So there is so many variations of how it's actually done, the theme. But yeah, I would love to also join Samuli for the southernmost game jam in the world.
With penguins.
But then there's been some jokes also that somebody would rather go to the International Space Station to have a game jam. So I guess that's quite... Maybe we could have one team member from the space station, but to get there yourself would be quite hard.
Yeah, but maybe in our lifetime.
Yeah. All right. So, any final famous last words that will be recorded for the future reference?
That sounds like a threat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it will be staying here forever. I mean, game jams is a beautiful format, but they vary a lot. So even this panel, we have not been able to open up all the different aspects. We haven't been discussing about the definition of game jams, for instance, because that might also differ a lot. So if you're you're new to game jams, you go into one jam location, hopefully in the future when the physical reality is much more easy. Or in an online jam, it might be like maybe the first experience is not as beautiful as that these people have had, like a very, very uplifting or emancipating experience or inspiring one. But the jam sites and jams, they differ. So you should always try the next one. Maybe it's not your thing at all, but there's so many different kinds of jams out there that I'm sure that you will find your own. And if you don't have a jam that you would like to attend, you're also free to organize your own. So it's not really, there is not a committee that would prevent you from making a game jam. So for instance, itch.io hosts a lot of game jams, and oftentimes the fun ones are run by a kind of random private person. I guess the pizza jam is a good example for that, for instance. A pizza jam is, as far as I know, because I've never attended, is a jam where you get a kind of the best game wins a pizza. Wherever you are in the world.
Yeah, my friend attended that and he won. And he got a pizza.
So there is
proof.
My
weirdest game jam.
There is proof that the pizza can arrive any location. So yeah, you can be the next person that comes up with an idea of something funny happening in the jamming scene or something more serious. This doesn't have to be about jokes. It can be completely kind of a... we did a jam that was titled Sad Games last year, and that was pretty super nice to look at the games that were very personal and explore the different emotions that we typically get in games. So yeah, there's a lot to explore with games, whether you go to different locations to do the development or you make games that have not been done before. So yeah, I want to thank the panelists of today, and I'm so unhappy that this is over, and I'm so unhappy that we can't be face to face and kind of continue this discussion specifically in the jam location where we had nice cottages and jacuzzis and watching all the mosquitoes fly by. But I hope that everybody will be excited about game jams of the future, whether they're online or physical. And hopefully we'll get Solip also to travel to Korea back home and jam in Korean, I guess.
Yes.
Come to Korea.
Yes.
Yeah, all the others as well.
Yes, we'll be there.
I'm here.
Yes.
There you are. And so this is a nice international scene of different kinds of game development events. Let's discuss more on our Discord channel. You can find the invitation link at Games Now Aalto FI website. If you're not there yet, just join us. There is a DJ playing music, so we can share at least that kind of moment together that we listen to same music. But yeah, let's chat more there and share some links.
Yes, and you can
thanks
ask
everybody.
More questions there. Join us there. Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.